Welcome to the last PCGSA meeting of the spring semester. I have one quick announcement. Be watching your emails regarding two things. Number one, elections are open if you're interested in an officer position. So nominations are due by this Sunday and voting will open on Monday. Similarly, we have our Outstanding Student Award nominations that are going on through Sunday as well. So if you're interested in either one of those, please check out our website. The final thing is be watching for emails regarding the upcoming summer social that will be at the beginning of June. Today we have Dr. Wilson and LaShondra Manning to talk about professional organizations and particularly pertaining to counseling students or faculty. So we're glad to have them here and we'll let them take this over.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you so very much. Well, LaShondra and I are here to talk to you about professional organizations today. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, my name's Angie Wilson and I am second year faculty here at Texas A&M Commerce. I'm currently the president-elect for I'm currently the president-elect for TASES, which is the Texas Association for Counselor Education and Supervision, and also involved in a host of other organizations and committees. That includes serving on an ACA committee, which is the American Counseling Association, for process addictions and addictive behaviors, and different committees within the state doing lots of different things. And so that's a little bit about myself. I'm going to turn it over to LaShondra so that she can tell you a little bit about herself and the organizations that she's involved in as well.
Hi, I'm LaShondra Manning, and I'm a third-year doctoral student in the counseling program. And I am active at the state level with TCA and with TASES, and then at the state level at ACA. So there's lots of opportunities I've been able to take a part of because of being a member of those organizations.
Yes, and so some of the things that we're going to talk to you about today is, as a student in a master's or doctoral program, it's really important for you to join professional organizations. Hence the title of our presentation, What Every Counseling Student Should Know About Professional Organizations. Join now and get connected. So, why should you join professional organizations? So number one, you want to enhance your network. So you really want to get out there and build a name for yourself and get to meet people. And you know, it's really neat when you get to go to some of the professional conferences and meetings because you see people, maybe people who wrote your textbooks or people you've read about them, you've read their articles, and you get to meet them and you get to expand your network. So that's really important. You also get to take charge of your education and take charge of your career. So at a lot of these professional organizations and a lot of the meetings and the committee work that you'll hopefully be doing soon, you'll be voting on important things. You'll be doing research with people in the field, making changes with our organizations or making changes with our programs. For example, some of the work that we did in TASES this past year is we really looked at programs across the state because our counseling programs are expanding to 60 hours across the board. And so we asked for our students' input about that. Of course, most students didn't want to move to a 60-hour program, but when we asked for our students' input, they were able to tell us the benefits and some of the cons for moving to a 60-hour program. But it's really good to have students who are able to voice their concerns and voice their opinions, and it's important for you to know that your voice matters. It's so important that a lot of the professional organizations, everyone that I can think of, has a position for a student board member. And so oftentimes that position is a voting member position and sometimes it isn't, but at the end of the day, we want to hear your voice. And that's actually how I became involved in professional organizations, is I went and I participated at a conference, the TASES conference, and I did a poster presentation. And at the end of the conference, I had secured a position on the board as the graduate student representative. They're like, hey, we have this empty position and you did a great job on your poster presentation and we've enjoyed talking to you. Do you think you'd be interested in joining our executive board? So I was like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful, sure. And so I've been involved ever since. So you want to take charge of your education and your career. Then you want to broaden your knowledge, conferences, trainings, and CEUs, as well as publications. I can speak from my personal experience. One of my professors, who I now view her as one of the most integral people in my career in helping me get started with presentations and publications and really just knowing what I need to be doing, she said, hey, I think you should join this committee with me. And I was like, oh, so sure about that. I'm kind of busy, got a lot going on. I'm trying to finish a dissertation, but I joined the committee, and the committee was doing a lot of awesome work. So we did national studies on addictions and addictive behaviors, and I mean, it was just awesome, so awesome that the committee was like, hey, we need to write up these results, and we're all busy. We need somebody who's going to take first author on this research, and we really don't have time to do it. So of course I was like, well, I think I can do that. And so I've gotten a couple of publications out of being on this committee because everybody else is just so busy that they don't have time to write up the results. And so it's interesting because as a faculty member, of course, I want to do research and I want to get the articles out there. But even as a student, one of the persons that I worked with on that research paper was a doctoral student from Walden University. And she said, you know, this is a wonderful opportunity because I don't know if I would have been able to join a committee and do all this research and become second author on a national publication. So make sure you're taking advantages of the research opportunities and the writing opportunities, conferences, trainings, and CEUs. And I know LaShondra does that as well. She takes advantage of all those opportunities of conferences and trainings. And is there anything that you'd like to add, LaShondra?
Not right now.
Not right now? LaShondra is very modest, but I can tell you that she's attended many conferences and many trainings, and I can say that she's helped me out a lot this semester. The beginning of the semester was a little rough for me because I had a baby on one Monday, and then the next Monday school started. So I was teaching 3 classes like within less than a week of having a baby. But at that time I was also planning one of the largest state conferences that we have within TCA, which is the TASIS Midwinter Conference, and it's an annual conference. And so LaShondra helped me out a whole lot. And so I think I can speak on her behalf and say that she broadened her knowledge a whole lot because she pretty much co-coordinated that conference with me. I think there was times where I counted LaShondra send out like 90-something emails to people about their proposals, and you know, we read all those proposals and we crunched all those numbers. And so when you join professional organizations or when you team up with someone who can kind of mentor you, you get to learn a whole lot within a short period of time sometimes, but you get to learn a whole lot, and it gives you a very important set of skills that you may need later on in the future.
Oh, can I add this? I know you've been talking about TASIS a lot, and I know a lot of people, if you're not in counseling, you might not know what that is. And so that's the Texas Association for Counselor, Educators, and Supervisors. And so that's one of the branches of TCA, and of course all the branches, which Dr. Wilson will get to, of TCA are reflective of the national organizations that we have as well. So when she's saying TASIS, that's what she's talking about. Right. And of course that's the premier organization for a counselor educator.
And for supervisors as well. So if you're a master's level student and you have no plans on getting a PhD and you need to join an organization, you can definitely join TASIS because we provide CEUs and credentialing for LPC supervisors. If you're a master's level student and you're looking for an organization for you, I definitely recommend joining TCA and looking at some of the divisions and committees, and we'll get into specifics of divisions and committees in just a second as well. So one of the most important parts is you get to advocate for yourself, for your clients, and for your profession. So you get to vote. You get to vote on things that are important, and you get to speak up. So if there's legislation going on, for example, one of the big things that was going on in counseling within the last couple of years is about accepting, referrals for military clients. Some people believe that counselors should not be able to do so, while other people believe that counselors should be reimbursed for their work with military families and military clients, and that that person doesn't necessarily have to be a psychologist or social worker. So don't really want to get into the politics of all that. But that's something that's kind of been going back and forth in the legislature. So we've had students and educators and counselors and supervisors all speaking up and advocating on behalf of the profession. So that's really important as well. So you definitely want to stay current on the trends in the field. So staying current is important, and so joining professional organizations can help you to do that, as well as grants, scholarships, fellowships, and jobs. So we all know that a lot of the jobs, everything takes place sometimes behind closed doors. So you can meet somebody at a conference, they can give you the in on a position that's going to be available soon, or you can apply for the student scholarships and the student grants that are exclusively for students. And oftentimes, believe it or not, those grants and those scholarships are under applied for because sometimes students just don't know. So if you're looking for tuition, sometimes those scholarships, you can put that towards your tuition. If you're looking for grants for your dissertation or for some form of research that's interesting to you, then that's something that you definitely want to take advantage of. And then mentorship. Depending on the organization that you join, there's formal and informal mentorship. So when I say formal mentorship, there is a mentorship program by the American Counseling Association where you fill out this form and you talk about your interests, and they pair you up with someone who has those similar interests. And so that way you can get some mentorship from someone that's away from your campus or away from your university, and you're being taught different things, different ideas. And so then with informal mentorship, it's kind of what happened with me. I joined this professional organization and I got mentorship from some of my professors at my program, but I really wanted to make sure I was on the right track and doing the right thing. So I kind of just approached a group of ladies and I said, hey, can you guys help me out? Can you kind of tell me what I'm supposed to do here? And they're like, is that what you want? You want us to mentor you? Then hey, it's going to be a lot of work. And it was. They gave me writing projects. They gave me, hey, you need to revise your Vita. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen so much red and track changes all over my Vita. But it worked. It worked out really well. So I got all this mentorship about research and applying for jobs. And they asked me questions about my professional goals that I hadn't really had the opportunity to think about. So mentorship, I think out of all of these, mentorship is probably the most important thing about joining professional organizations. You really want to make sure that you're getting that mentorship. Then doing the work. So the work of professional organizations happens in divisions, chapters, and in committees. So as LaShondra mentioned earlier, the way that most of the counseling organizations are set up is they're all reflective from our national organization, which is ACA. So in ACA, there are divisions and then there's chapters and committees. So in those divisions, depending on what your specialty area is, there's just about a division for everything. So if you are looking for counselor education, there's a division for that. If you're looking for mental health counseling, there's a division for that. School counseling, there's a division for that. I think there's 22 divisions, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's also chapters and committees. And so basically that's where the work happens. You can be a member of ACA, you can be a member of TCA, but really that's not the hard work. Anybody can pay their annual dues. The hard work happens in committees, chapters, and divisions. And so with that said, when you're working in committees, chapters, and divisions, I'm kind of jumping to the bottom here, you do want to have fun, but the most important thing is make sure that you do a good job, because you're creating a professional identity and you're making a name for yourself. So it's very important that you just don't think about this as, oh, I'm volunteering my time, I can do this whenever I get around to it. It's not really that important, and kind of be lackadaisical about things. You still want to remember that you're representing yourself and you're representing your program. Oftentimes you're representing your state as well if you're working on a national level, and people will remember your name, and you just want to make sure that when they remember your name, they remember your name because you did something well, not because you didn't do a good job at something. And so we've talked about publications and presentations already, but I just want to kind of comment on that again. When you're working in divisions and committees, there's going to be research happening. So if you're interested in a particular area of research, I think one of the best pieces of advice I can give you is to find a committee or find a division that's doing the research that you're interested in. One of the divisions, which is IOC, which is a division that I'm a member of, it's the International Association for Addiction and Offender Counseling. We have several people that have joined our division and even joined the specific committee that I'm on because they're looking for help with their dissertation. And so our committee members are helping them by giving them loads of literature or letting them know about studies that have been done that may be similar or dissimilar to some of the things that they're thinking about. And we have several people that are saying, hey, can we use this listserv to collect data? So you really want to make sure that you are using your network. You want to expand your network, and you also want to use that network as well. So remember that you're doing a service and that you're making a name for yourself. Please remember that. Please remember it. It's very important. And then also connect with other graduate students. You know, when you connect with other graduate students, whether it's the master's level or doctoral level, you connect with someone who can relate to you, and you connect with someone who can help you out through things. So you want to connect with other graduate students. I think Another good piece of advice that I'd like to give you is if you're going to a conference, use the buddy system. Take someone from your program with you. Take someone from your program with you. Go out there, have fun, meet people. And another thing is always have a business card. Always have business cards with you when you go to conferences. You can go to Vistaprint and get like 250 for $5.99. So always have business cards with you. Make sure that you have business cards. I remember someone said, I'm just going to this conference and I'm a master's student. It's my first conference. Do I really need to have business cards? Yes, you do. Have business cards with you. Have business cards with your phone number, your email address, where you're a student at, what program you're involved in. So you want people, when you meet them, you want to give them something tangible so that they can remember who you are. And keep business cards that you get from other people. I have a stack of cards from people that I've met over the years, and I write notes on the back of them so that I can kind of remember who that person is. So I remember one card that I got, the lady's name was Angela, and of course I remember that because my name is Angie, and so I was like, Angela, she's really nice. She offered to be my mentor, and so I know that there are certain things that Angela is an expert on, that if I called her and said, hey, remember we met, we've talked a little bit, you said you'd help me out, that she would. So you definitely want to make sure that you're taking notes on those kind of things as well. And then definitely you want to have fun. So some professional organizations that you can join, you can definitely join the American Counseling Association, the Texas Counseling Association, and then specialty organizations and or divisions. So remember that when you're joining the ACA or TCA, the work doesn't just happen with you joining that organization. You definitely want to become members of the chapters and the divisions that are specific to your individual needs as a student. Now I'm going to turn it over to LaShondra.
So these are some of the things I've done with the memberships that I'm in. My cohort and I, we presented at the Midwinter Conference, and what was exciting is not only was Dr. Wilson president-elect, but we had the majority of counseling students there. So we got an award, and we have the traveling trophy that's in Maryland's office, which we're proud to have. And so this is all of us just presenting, and I think Commerce really made a presence, and that's something that we wanted. And so we did this together because, of course, as doc students, we have our sheet where we have to get our signatures and everything on. So we got that, we did it together. That's the thing. It's 5 of us in the picture. 6. Okay, I can't count. It's 6 of us in the picture. We each could have done 6 different individual presentations, but we decided to come together. And it was really powerful because our topic was actually about mentoring doctorals. As doctoral student supervisors, how you can actually serve that role with master students. And so that's something that we did. And we had other doctoral students to come, and it was just really a lot of camaraderie because we talked about the differences of our campuses and other campuses. And what was interesting too is we saw some of these students at ACA, which we'll get to in a minute, which was in Hawaii. And so here, this young man, if you're in counseling, this is Dr. Sam Gladdy, and we were fortunate to have him at TCA. He was the keynote speaker when we were in, I think that was San Antonio that we were in. Mm-hmm. Then he actually came to Commerce, which was awesome. But he was also in Hawaii. And so this was a time we were having fun. I will always remember we were having our party. And so we were shaking our booties to Beyonce, and it's like, oh my gosh, a national figure, we're doing all that. So that was really cool.
And he's written just about every textbook that you can think of. He's a really big name in counseling.
He is.
I was a little jealous when LaShondra texted me and said, I'm in Hawaii with Samuel Gladding and we're dancing to Beyonce. I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I was in Hawaii dancing to Beyonce with Samuel Gladding. So you mean you went to Hawaii for a conference?
Well, yes, because we have our national conference, so we can have fun. During the day, we're doing all of our sessions and we're learning new things about the field, but of course, at night, we get to party, so we party. One thing that's cool down here, this is one of my favorite professors from my master's program, Dr. David Lawson. And so, of course, I went to school in Nacogdoches, which is far from here. We really have not connected in a long time. He wrote my letters to get me here to Commerce, and that was pretty much it. Well, he was inducted as a fellow, and so to run into him in Hawaii, it's crazy. We both live in Texas, but we don't see each other. So to run into him was really good. I was able to update him, let him know what was going on with me, to find out that he was a fellow, being inducted, to sit next to him when they called his name. That was awesome. So what's good about these conferences is regardless if it's national or state, you get to reconnect with people. And then here, I got an award at the Midwinter Conference because I was helping Dr. Wilson. And then as a committee member, I know we reviewed proposals, helped get the book together, sent all these emails out. And I'll tell you this, as TASES, I was just doing my committee job. And I kid you not, I'm still in awe of this. I was telling Lindsay when I saw her last week, that I actually got a job. It's so crazy. There's this guy who was very impressed with me. He was Dr. Tom Haygood from ETBU, and so we were just talking, and I guess he was impressed with me. I see all the emails that you sent out, and I was sending some on Christmas because we needed to get this thing done because our conference was in January. And so he was just impressed with my work, and it's interesting, ETBU's in my hometown, so we started talking, and he just invited me, gave me his card, and we exchanged cards. He's like, well, why don't you just come and have lunch sometimes during spring break. So I did, kind of dressed like I am now, informal, just going to say hi. He introduced me to everybody. So met the dean, didn't think anything of it. Maybe 2 weeks later, the dean calls me back and says, we have, 2 openings, one person did not accept, we want you to come interview. And I'm like, I'm ABD. I don't have my PhD yet. We're aware of that, we know where you're at, we're interested in your study, the research that you want to do, we want you to come in. So I'm like, okay, I'm going home for Easter, why not? The next day, went for an interview, and pretty much that day they have offered me the job. And they have given me perks, so they're going to pay for the rest of my tuition while I'm a student. They're going to pay for me to break my contract at the private practice. And so they really handed me this job on a silver platter. And I think that would not have happened if I was not at a TASIS conference. First of all, just being me, and just showing my professionalism. And so here I am getting a job, starting in January as faculty member. So instead of having to go through the process of finding a job and applying and interviewing, I'll just walk into it. Mm-hmm. So I think by attending events like that, you just never know what could happen. So I think it was a divine appointment. It was just the time and the place. You never know who's out there and what they're looking for.
And they're also going to fund your dissertation.
Yes, and they're going to fund my dissertation travel because they know where I'm at, because I also communicated with them what was important, and it's getting my dissertation done. And so they're like, well, we want you, and we will do whatever we can to make it happen. So you just never know what could possibly happen.
So go to those conferences, join those professional organizations, expand your network, and make sure the most important thing is that, of course, you have fun, but you also want to remember that you're creating a professional identity for yourself. So the name that you create for yourself will follow you, and just make sure that it's something that you're proud of and something that we can be proud of here at Texas A&M Commerce as well. So just some other things about ACA. We talked a little bit about the American Counseling Association. It is the world's largest organization exclusively representing the counseling community. And like I mentioned earlier, for just about any specialty that you can think of, there's an ACA committee, chapter, or division for that. And then there are tons of student benefits. And I'm not going to really get into all of them now. However, this PowerPoint will be posted on the website for you, along with some supplemental information from the American Counseling Association. There is a graduate student committee, however. I do want to mention that. There is a specific committee for graduate students about graduate student interests and graduate student needs. And then, of course, there are tons. This kind of lists some of the specialty areas that you can join in the American Counseling Association. So there's everything from animal-assisted therapy to women's issues to sports counseling, you name it, and there's a specific division or a committee for it. And then TCA, of course, is the Texas Counseling Association. This is just some historical information about TCA. Some information that you may find to be interesting is that here at Texas A&M Commerce, I believe that we are one of the programs in the state of Texas with the most historical TCA involvement. We've had several past Texas Counseling Association presidents as members of our faculty, and it's just really good if you can join TCA and continue to help us make a great name for Texas A&M Commerce. And then here are some perks for the student benefits for the Texas Counseling Association. One thing that I've forgotten to mention up until now, that one of the things that's most important about joining these professional organizations is that you get discounted or free malpractice insurance for your practicum and internship sites. So that's really important. So, and then with TCA, for all members, you get a $3,000 life insurance policy every year when you renew your membership. So you definitely want to make sure that you have, here it says that your professional liability insurance is only $18 when you're with the TCA, the Texas Counseling Association, as a graduate student. So those are some things that we wanted to share with you about professional organizations. And if any of you have any questions, please let us know, and LaShondra and I will be more than happy to answer them for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions before we see the psychology perspective of this? Thank y'all. I really learned a lot. I didn't know much about counseling organizations, so I feel informed now.
Great.
That was awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have Dr. Johnson to come and share about professional organizations with psychology, individuals in the field of psychology. So we're glad to have her here, and we look forward to hearing what you have to share.
I'm much more casually prepared. I came to talk to you today about professional organizations. And I would be remiss in not starting with the American Psychological Association. APA has a national presence. They are the second largest organization next to American Medical Association. APA has 131,000 members, and if you go to an APA convention, you will be there usually among about 20,000 people who attend the convention all at one time. APA, when I said has a national presence, there are times when our legislators, when Congress has called on APA. Years back, there was an explosion on an American naval ship. And the conclusion of the naval group that looked at it was that there was a person on the crew who had committed suicide and that they had caused this explosion. And that was where it was going to begin and end. But the U.S. Congress said, let's have somebody from outside. And they called an American Psychological Association to come in and do the evaluation. That would be because we're very good at doing psychiatric autopsies, which means if you're saying that this person was going to commit suicide and had plans, we're the ones that come and look at it. Over and over again, you will find APA testifying in national areas. You will find APA being the authorities in many areas. If you are a grad student and you don't have your copy of the APA manual, shame on you.
That's right.
That's right. Unless you're in English and then you have the MLA, which is, if you've ever done, my poor husband has done 2 dissertations, one in MLA and one in APA, and he will tell you that MLA is not nearly as nice and user-friendly as APA. So when we complain about APA style, we shouldn't be. So APA is a national body. It is a force. One of the entities that large groups like APA, like KCREP, do is they lobby for us. They lobby for us in Congress. One of the things that psychologists have wanted for many years is privileges to prescribe medications. And that is highly debated among the psychology people. But the one group that represents that idea and keeps it out and keeps it being looked at is APA. And it is not something that everybody agrees on. To tell you the 2 sides of that, so you'd understand why it's not even, people don't want to get caught in what psychiatrists are caught in. Psychiatrists, insurance companies will say, 15 minutes, you prescribe the drug and you get out. A lot of psychologists fear if we can prescribe medication, we will be put in that. On the other hand, I had a friend who was a psychologist in North Dakota. And in North Dakota, people go to their veterinarians to get antibiotics for their children because there's no medication there. And there is no one who can prescribe. Prescribing psychiatric meds is not as difficult as it sounds, especially if you have a general practitioner working with you, because there aren't very many. They're mainly antidepressants. If you get into the controlled substances, that's not something that psychologists have ever asked to do. So we will be debating that for a while, and the group that's going to be in the forefront representing us, helping the discussion, is the American Psychological Association. And if you want to know how I stand on that, I don't know. But I will tell you, when I was a VA psychologist and I was the clinical manager and we had a snowstorm and all of our psychiatrists stayed home and I was there and all the patients were lining up to get their meds renewed, I thought, if I had privileges, I could just say, yes, whatever they're on, just renew it. And then for just about 2 weeks, and instead we had to send people home without medications. So that's the one time I really thought, man, I would like to have prescribing privileges. So it is a large group, it's a lobbying group. It also provides ethical principles for all people in the field. One thing that a lot of people don't know about is that if you are not a member of APA, the ethical principles cannot be held against you in court. Other than somebody can say, well, this is the ethical bias, and they can say, but I'm not an APA member, so I'm not bound. But the reality is that the ethical guidelines that we follow, which are very similar to KCREP's, They're very simple, similar to social work, and then all of them were based on AMA originally, American Medical Association. They keep us safe, they give us the guidelines, and they help. So they provide ethical guidelines in everything from research and practice and in teaching. And they tell us what we should be doing in the classroom, what we should and should not be doing in our relationships with other psychologists, with our clients, and with our students. That's essential, to have a large body to help guide us. Sometimes what seems right is absolutely wrong, and that's the difference between ethics and common sense. Common sense can be wrong. It seems like it's so right until you do it and you go, oh man, that was not the right thing to do. In addition to that, they provide guidance for education. They set standards for undergraduate education. They set standards for doctoral education. And if you notice, I left one thing out. They don't set standards for master's education. One of the things that, the reasons for that is psychologists have been debating for years if people with what the role is for people with master's degrees. And if I was going to criticize APA for any reason, it would be in that. When we don't say our master's students are trained to do this, this, and this is what they should be allowed to do, other professions can come in and say, well, then they're not worth anything. And I have had social work master's people in the hospital and worked in the hospital say the master's in social work is equivalent to the doctorate because the master's in psychology can't do anything. So we need to step up. It's an area we're working on, and I'll tell you about another organization, Impact, which does the accrediting for masters in psychology, and APA is beginning to talk to Impact. They're beginning to work together. But we desperately need more guidance in masters in psychology. There are 56 divisions in APA. You name the field you're interested in, there is one. We go by numbers. So I have been a member of Division 17, Division 36, and Division 38. And Division 17 is the Division of Counseling Psychology. Division 36 is the Society of Religion and Philosophy. And 38 is Health Psychology. When you join these organizations, they all have journals, they all have, when we go to APA, now it sounds like going to an organization with 20,000 people all attending at once. How could you ever make connections? Well, every group has talk sessions, they have different sessions, and you're invited to present. I presented at APA about 3 or 4 times, and it's always fun and it's always exciting when you do it. When you go to an APA conference, the manual or the catalog of what's going on is this thick. And it's just one thing after another. So at 10 o'clock on Tuesday, there are these 50 things going on, and you can choose. And it's a week long of this book, what do you want to go to.
The conference is a whole week?
It starts with educational information, and then the conference itself is about 3 days, and then there's some other special meetings. But it's a full week long, with most of it being in about 3 days. I have seen numerous famous psychologists when I've been there, and it's been real exciting to go see them and see them in person. I used to take my children and my mother with me because they love to go. It's really entertaining, really fun, and you get to see. It is so large that there are only about 5 or 6 locations that the APA convention can be in. Most cities cannot hold this convention because it is so large. So it's in New York, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Hawaii. We go to Hawaii too. It was in Hawaii last year. Those are the only cities with enough hotels, because you have a convention center and then you have hotels. And so when you go to the conference, you move from, oh, I want to go to this at 10 o'clock, it's over here. I've got to get to this at noon, it's across town. But they're somewhat lumped together. Some cities are easier to get around in than others. But it's always fun. You see famous people, you meet all kinds of people. And what I have enjoyed doing most are poster presentations, because when you go and then people will come by and all of a sudden you'll see someone that wrote a textbook or did something, and there they are talking to you in person. My instructors at the University of Missouri-Columbia had us all, my very first year, we did a joint project of the history of counseling in the United States. and put it into APA, had it accepted, and we got to go our first semester to an APA convention and present. And then from there on, I've gone several times. It is important to us that APA be there for us for education. Remember that this is going to make too much noise wherever it is. We're going to put it down there. That APA will helps us guidance for the programs, but then also in APA we have internships, and an APA internship is very important. In order to have an APA internship for clinical training, that site has to be approved just like a program. We've all been through SACS. APA approval is very much like SACS. APA approval of an internship program is very much like going through a SACS approval. They have visitors, they come on site, they do all that. I was fortunate enough to be a supervisor at an APA approved clinical site. It was the Mid-Missouri Mental Health Consortium, and our students rotated between a university hospital setting, a inpatient psychiatric state facility, and a VA hospital where they did research, where they did health psychology, substance abuse, and inpatient. So we had that, and we would have 8 students, and the APA matching for that is amazing because all of these students all go out and they're all looking, and the rule is apply to at least 20 internships. And you go for your personal interviews, you apply, and then there's matching day. And if you've ever heard about the American Medical Association matching day for residencies, it's very much like that. Each student turns in their list. These are the places that I want to go for number 1 to number whatever. Each site says these are the students we're interested in, and you list from number 1 down. And then they put them all in the computer, they match them, and that day you find out, the site finds out who they've got, and then they call the students and say, you've been invited to come to our location and be with us. So it's an exciting day, and I remember thinking I had been waiting for that call for at least 3 hours, and it had been 5 minutes since they started calling. And they were kind enough to call me first because they knew I was neurotic and worried. So for APA internships, APA has approval, and then there are APA postdocs. And an APA postdoc, it's important to have these, especially if you're going to be a licensed psychologist. It's important to have the APA, at least pre-doctoral internship, because many states, if it's not APA approved, they either won't accept them or you have to do extra things to show that you met the criteria. Because an APA approved internship, you do your clinical work, you also have special trainings, you have a number of different people that you have to meet with during the week, and there are standards that you have to meet. If you've done that and you've graduated from an APA program and you've gone to an APA internship, the road to licensure is much easier because they know you have met the standards that you need. We follow the APA guidelines for undergraduate. We're not APA accredited at the doctoral level because there is no cognitive psychology accrediting. It's not one of the recognized areas. If we would expand and go back to school site, that is one of the things that Dr. Schrader and I have said, is we would like to be APA accredited. But our students, any of our students who are taking classes in this area can join APA. The benefits are much like the ones for the Counseling Association. You get the American Psychologist Journal, you get discounts on journals, you get discounts on books, you get discounts on the conferences. I would say the average APA dues for those of us who are licensed psychologists in the field are between $600 and $800 a year. For students, it's $56. You have never had such a bargain as you will have to join APA as a student and to have all those discounts and be able to go to all those things. So I told you that there are 56 divisions by interest. To tell you, I brought the list with me, but there's everything from behavior analysis to health psychology to psychology and law society, exercise and sports, trauma psychology, for the advancement of psychopharmacology, for the child and clinical, anything you're interested, there is. But then we also have subdivisions by region, and our region is SWAPA. And a lot of you know about SWAPA and have gone to SWAPA. SWAPA is nice. I will tell you, if you've never been to an APA convention, though, you have to go. It is phenomenal. I went to one in New York City, and we went into a restaurant that was not in any way connected with the conference. And this waiter came up and said, "Who are you guys? I have seen all these strange people talking about warm, fuzzy things, and here you all are. Who are you?" And we said, "Oh, we're the American Psychological Association." And you make a presence even in a city as large as New York. APA does all of those things for us, but it does not give us guidance in the area of Masters in Psychology. One of the former department heads in psychology from this university recognized, along with others, that we need guidance in setting standards for master's programs in psychology. He helped establish NAMP, CAMP, and MPAC. NAMP is the National Association of Master's Programs in Psychology. CAMP is the Council of Applied Master's Programs in Psychology. And MPAC is the Master's Accreditation Council. And I have just stepped down as the board chair for that national organization. What we do is very similar to what APA does. We're a much smaller, much newer organization. We've been in existence about 20 years. We have about 35 schools that are now accredited with us. We're growing very rapidly as people understand the need for accreditation. We're one of 2 programs in the state of Texas that have the master's programs accredited. Only 2. It means something when you go out and apply for your doctorate somewhere that you graduated from an accredited program. MPAC does not lobby. MPAC does not have conferences. They exist for one reason. They exist to set standards and make sure that the programs that they accredit set good standards for teaching our students. And they come in and we do a site visit every 10 years. We do updates every 3 years. So you go 3 years, 3 years, 3 years, and then your big site year visit at the end of 10 years. It assures that we have good training for our psychology students at the master's level. They set the standards, and I did not realize how many different kinds of master's programs there are in psychology. Most of ours are applied or clinical. We also have counseling psychology, and we have community psychology. Lots of different programs in that. MPAC is important. MPAC has taken the step that APA has been afraid to do, but APA is beginning to talk to MPAC, and I would not be surprised if MPAC doesn't at some time merge or go and join APA. MPAC, and this is very controversial, about 2 years ago, MPAC was approached by a bunch of counseling programs. KCREP is an excellent organization. They lobby, they do everything that APA does, but the cost for a KCREP accreditation is so high that some of the smaller schools wanted to be accredited and they could not afford KCREP. For that and several other reasons, they wanted to start a master's accreditation council in counseling. We were not sure we wanted to go there because KCREP is a very politically strong organization. But these people were very persuasive, so there's now another division. MPAC is for psychology, MCAC is for counseling, and then there's MCCAC, which is the Master's Counseling Accreditation and Psychology Accreditation Board. Where they will go, I don't know. They've only been in existence 2 years. That brings me to a third accrediting body that you should know about, and that's CHIA. CHIA, I didn't know about until this year, but if you're getting accredited, if you're dealing with an organization that accredits, the first thing you ask is, are you CHIA accredited or are you seeking CHIA accreditation? CHIA is the Council of Higher Education Accrediting Bodies. They accredit the accrediting bodies. So APA, KCREP, American Counseling Association, all would want to be CHIA accredited. Now we've been too small in MPAC, but this year we are seeking CHIA accreditation, and it's hard, and it's tough, and it's expensive. But you have to get so many years, you have to show that you have accredited so many schools, you have to do all those things. So now we're going to that. I didn't know there was such a thing. It sounded pretty silly to me at first that you have to have an accrediting body to accredit accrediting bodies. But then, I might decide that I was going to have an accrediting body for social work, and I was going to set that up. I don't know anything about what should be in training for social work, but I could set standards up, charge people fees, and go out and accredit them. And CHIA guarantees that the accrediting bodies that you work with are of high standard. Now, impact, they all know that we've started, and our goal was to get accredited. We go to site visits. I've gotten to meet people. Again, just as you said with counseling, it's a way of networking and a way of getting to know people. All of these organizations are important. SWAP is fun. It's usually close. It's easy to get to. But if you've never been to APA, you haven't lived. And go while you're a student. It is a whole lot cheaper. A lot of the locations are very expensive. We used to go in a van with a whole bunch of us together, taking our sleeping bags, spreading them out on floors, and all sharing a hotel room to be able to afford the hotels, because the hotels were the expensive part as a student. But experience them, join them now while you're a student, and you get the low rates, because that gives you a chance of trying numerous organizations. You can try all the different divisions. It guarantees certain privileges for you, and when you go out to apply for jobs, if you are members of these organizations, that will stand out. A graduate student that graduates and doesn't have on there that they belong to some of the organizations may be looked at, as not really participating. It's a fun way to meet people, like you said. I've never danced to Beyonce with anybody, but I'm not sure I could ever dance to Beyonce with anybody ever. So, but I have gotten to see some wonderful people and hear some things, and it's for you. Get out and join them. Do you have questions?
I do. I have a question. So I'm getting the sense that you're focusing mostly on counseling psychology or applied psychology, correct?
In impact?
Yes.
Not necessarily.
I'm trying to feel that because, like, for instance, I'm a member of APA. I've presented talks at SWAPA, but I'm social psychology.
Yes.
So I joined SPSP. Could you talk a little bit about that? That there's also specializations for, like, for example, cognitive psychonomics, SPSP. Just a little bit on those other types of larger organizations that you're aware of and what they benefit for us, or what they give us.
They are so many, and many of them split off from APA, and it's kind of funny. Many of them split off from APA because they felt APA was too clinically based. Now there are groups splitting off from APA because they feel they are too educational based. So, but any area that you're interested in, you can look and you can find. But some of the areas, like I told you, I was a member of Division 36, which is religion and spirituality. They used to be an individual split-off organization who now come in and join APA. So you can look. There's numerous different areas that you can go to. We are Impact accredited. That's why I mentioned Impact, and it is the only group that accredits master's programs.
Does that include the general masters? Because that's what I have. So
Yes.
I learned something.
Yes, you're Impact accredited.
Cool.
Yes.
I've got my MS now.
Yeah. And the APA it still guides us, even though we aren't accredited at this time. I think someday we may be. And cognition, that area, that unique area of psychology, when they started out, the very first division was the Society for General Psychology. We have been splitting ever since. The next one was the Society for Teaching of Psychology. Makes sense, right? And the third one was experimental psychology. So we could possibly be accredited under general or experimental psych. But we haven't sought that, but we will one of these days.
I have to ask, did you get to see Elizabeth Loftus at SWAPA this year?
I didn't get to go to SWAPA. I was filling in as the interim dean, and that was at the time that our new dean came in, and we were transitioning, and I had to be there.
We were talking about meeting cool people. When I saw her, that she was going to be at SWAPA, I was just like, oh, yeah, that's awesome.
The most fun person I ever saw was Albert Ellis.
Wow.
And I mean, one big character. He was bigger than life, wilder. you know, I've heard him say a lot of wild things on tape, but he says wilder things in person. Really very interesting, but there was one thing I saw one time, and I can't remember who all was there, but they took some of the most famous psychologists and had them come and had them talk on their careers in psychology and talk about where they've been. And psychology is a really fairly young entity. We haven't been around very long. We're based in philosophy. We're based in those areas. 200 years ago, we were an infant. And if you haven't ever, I do something for my students when they're graduating. I trace their family counseling or the family psychology lineage back, and I go back through all of the people that, and you don't go back very far until you hit some really famous names, just very famous names.
Do you have any questions?
Now she wants to know who's in her lineage, right?
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, well, it's fun. It's very fun to do, and you can ask your advisor. My advisor did that for me. She was Karen Moulton, who had graduated from Loyola, and she went back and traced it all the way back. And she provided it for me, and then she went on to be the department head at KU. Wonderful lady.
Well, we appreciate it. You can stop the camera. Thank you. We'll edit that out, by the way. Do you have anything we can actually post online?